Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
The podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Yeah, today we are sticking with our horror, theme or whatever.
Yeah, the spooky month of October.
This
has been cool. We've dipped our toes into some ones that we hadn't read, either of us, so this has been kind of fun.
Yeah, and just in case you noticed that the audio is different on this one, we are doing it through Zoom today because John is feeling a little under the weather. So we didn't want to get any germs or anything. So
yeah, I don't want to get anybody sick.
Yeah. So, but it's nothing serious, at least, right?
Yeah. No, I took a COVID test. It was negative. So.
Okay, you're not dying. That's what I want to know.
No.
Okay. Well, today we're doing kind of one that I've been wanting to do for a while. It's a book called Flinch by Vertigo, and it's an anthology horror series, which are kind of coming back. Actually, there's like a new Creepshow book that's like a anthology horror. And then there's another one called Shop Tales or something that just came out by Dark Horse. That's also like there's 2 every issue. This one has 3 every issue. So I think it's kind of like the Tales from the Crypt classic style of 8-page stories. And there's 3 of them per issue.
Yeah.
Which I liked. I liked a lot of these stories. And I thought actually for a anthology series, which some of them can be hit or miss, I thought this was pretty hit, like most of the time. There was at least one story that was like worth buying the issue for, if not 2, or if not 3. Actually, like the first issue, I thought was all 3 were good. So, yeah. But what do you think of this? Like, did you you didn't have any expectations of this, right? You never saw it before.
No, yeah, just from what you said, I remember you reading, you're telling me like all of the people involved. And I was like, oh wow, I know a bunch of these names. So like, that's pretty cool that we're getting. I like anthologies usually. I like when it's little stories here and there. And I read the first one of the ones that you read. I think it was like a new one that came out. What was the one techno horror?
Yeah, one of the techno
horror and Technicolor. Or something.
Yeah, something like that.
That was fun too. So I like I've always liked like Tales from the Crypt and Creepshow and stuff like that. So this is definitely up my alley. So and all the covers are so weird and creepy and crazy.
Yes, I loved the covers on this. In fact, that was like if I had seen this on the stands, I would have been like buy automatically just from the covers. They're like really creepy and odd. The first one is like a dude, which is probably like the picture that we have for this, but it's a dude like about to like put a marker in his eye, and he's like holding his eye open with one of those tweezers. It's fucking creepy. So that's actually why I even like saw this, was because I saw that cover and was like, oh, we need to read this. It's a horror anthology. So yeah, but we might as well just get straight into it. This is from 1999. This is when like the series was released. So it's kind of interesting because it's before like Fables and other Vertigo titles that got really big. And Bill Willingham, the writer of Fables, actually writes a story in this that's kind of Fables-like. So I thought that was interesting. Like, was this like the impetus for Fables, or did he just have that kicking around in his mind for a long time? But yeah, there's like a couple writers in here that you'll definitely know from other stuff, and artists as well. Very strong art in the series, I thought. So but yeah, issue 1 starts off with a bang, you say.
Yes, that's a perfect description.
And we're not going to go through every one of these stories, just the ones that we liked a lot. I know, at least for the first issue, I liked all 3. John, did you like all 3 in the first issue?
I liked all 3. I think 2 of them I liked really well.
Okay, well, we'll go through and you'll just say which one you liked most.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Rocket Man, right away, it's just a dude in a garage building a rocket pack, and he's like, I'm gonna fly, and you're like, this probably won't go good for this guy. This being a horror anthology, I'm assuming he does not make it to the stars, if you know what I mean. And so yeah, this dude's just like building it and it's like held together by screws. Like I'm imagining he goes to Home Depot to get like the things needed for this rocket pack, and he's like, please God, let it be the right one this time, because apparently he's tried this before and maybe he's never gotten off the ground, but no like fatalities obviously or anything. So And then he's got like his kids and family like, hey Pa, we're rooting for you, like off to the side. But then you see his wife is just like fucking over it. She
Yeah,
is,
you've been spending way too much time doing this.
yeah, that and just like, why are you wasting all of our money on these fucking rockets for no reason? This is a dude in his backyard with like a homemade jetpack. It's a Rocketeer if he made it, if instead of Howard Hughes making it, you know, Cliff Secord made it with no knowledge of anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, this dude's like, I love my kids and this is gonna be great. And they're like, Daddy, we love you. We're gonna watch you fly to the stars. And then he puts on his jetpack and he's like, we're gonna do it. And the kids are like, yay. And then he turns the on button on and he explodes.
No,
Literally.
he looks like he's like flying up into the air.
Yes, it looks like he's taking off, but the color changes. It goes from red when he takes off, and he's covered in like this. It goes badoom, not not like rocket noise, yeah. And then it's like fire, looking like it's about to start in the center, and then the rest of it is in blue, and the rest of it is like him being like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it! It's incredible! Look at me!" And then and then he gets to the stars, and then we cut to that night when the police are at the house and like, man, this guy was crazy, huh?
They're like, good God, what happened here?
Yeah. And like the neighbors say this guy was crazy, always talking about rockets and stuff. And basically he killed his whole family and him. Right? Like that's what I got from it. He killed everybody.
I think the wife and son are like burned extremely bad, and the little girl is not gonna make it. Yeah.
Well, it says the wife's third-degree burns head to foot. The boy's got half a face left and a crushed chest. And the little girl, well, she ain't gonna make it through the night. So pretty much everybody dead.
Everybody's gonna die, yeah.
Yeah. So this dude like killed himself and his family.
And he's got like body parts of himself like spewing across the yard.
All over the yard. And then you cut to him and in his, I guess ghost dad world or whatever, he's thinking he's like, this is great. I'm flying in the clouds. So yeah, pretty awesome first start, I thought.
That is a strong start. It's one of my favorites, honestly.
Yes. And the interesting thing is this one, I didn't know the writer, but the artist is Jim Lee. It doesn't look like Jim Lee at all to me. So that was interesting. But I figured, I guess they were like, we'll start with a bang. We'll get like fucking Jim Lee to draw it. And then the next one is Frank Quietly drawing. And also written by someone I never read before. And this one was crazy. What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, this one, I did not know where it was going.
Yeah, I didn't either. I didn't even understand at first what was happening, other than like this is a post-apocalyptic world. There's roving gangs going around, and there's all these girls trapped in like an underground bunker, and they all look like they've been beaten, cut, broken arms, all that kind of stuff. Like they're just getting ruined all the time every time they go outside. And we find out that this world has roving gangs of old men.
Because it's very Monty Python-esque.
Yes, that's what I thought too. When I got what was going on, I was like, oh my god, this is kind of hilarious, because it's like a parody of what would happen on Viagra, like in a sketch comedy show or something. Like,
yeah,
like this company makes Viagra, then all these old men are like young and virile again, and even though they're running around with canes and shit, they're like their badass selves. They're basically the gang from Clockwork Orange.
Yes.
But like geriatric. So they're going around and like just raping women and trying to get at women all the time and stuff, because they're like super horny because of this drug that made them go bad and makes them super horny all the time.
I love that they actually have a gang name. It's the Silver Wolves.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like, it's just ridiculous. And I couldn't believe it when I got like what was going on. So and they even have like, they show the what happened, and it's like there's newspaper headlines that are saying like gangland geezers get grizzly and like 56 killed in fourth warning this month. And then there's like a draft on for the Gulf War #2, adults 21 to 40 eligible, because now they're all spry and because of this drug or whatever. So I thought that was hilarious. And I gotta say, Frank Quietly, most of his characters look like old men anyway, or old people, because they're so like pillowy and like rounded. So his art definitely fit this world to me.
Very much so.
Yeah. But and then I like it's like end with a question mark, like, like, will this return? Will old men going crazy return? So, and then the last one of this issue was this crazy weird like I guess Christian group is going on like a summer camp, you know, so they're in a bus and they're heading to the camp and they stop at like a place called Angel Falls.
I'd like to point out that they are the Milkmen. I thought that was a fun little throwback to last week, basically.
Oh, is that what they're called?
Yeah,
Like, oh yeah,
he
you're
calls
right.
them Milkmen.
Yes. And so so they go to this little town, they like get gas or whatever and maybe get something to eat. They stop at this diner and the diner's called Wolf Girl Eats. And the reason why it's called that is because it's tied to like some kind of freak show like that they have going on.
Yeah, it's a little that little roadside attraction. Stop and look at the thing.
Yes, exactly. Like the thing, the real thing. That is a that is actually a stop that I've seen many times on the way to Los Angeles on the I-10. So
Yes.
check it out if you are driving from Texas to LA, I guess. So but yeah, so this Christian group stops at this diner and it's funny because there's a bunch of people, but mostly this focuses on the pastor who's very like pure and self-righteous, and the boy that's with him that's kind of looks up to the pastor and thinks like, oh yes, he is perfect and pure and you know righteous.
I'm gonna be like him.
Exactly. So they get told after they eat like, oh, you should go check out our zoo, you know, the freak show zoo, and they go through there and there's just all these starving animals that are being kept in cages and they're like, oh, this isn't a zoo, this is terrible. And so, oh, it's not a summer camp they're doing like a revival. That's what it is. So they set up their own tent near the town or whatever, and they start a revival that night. People start coming. They're showing videos of like Roman orgies and stuff, and being like, "This is horrible," and like you got to repent of your sin. In the meantime, at the end of that, the old man that runs the diner is like, "Hey, you should now that that's over, you should come check out our freak show where you see the wolf girl."
Yeah, a real special attraction.
Yeah, and they go with him because they're like the pastor like what's it called like justifies this to himself every time he goes over there like I'm going to help this person, you know. And that's what he says the first time. He's like, oh well, we should go help because all of God's children, no matter how hideous, need God or whatever. And so he goes there with the boy, and when the old man shows him like this pit, they look inside and this girl is stuck in the middle of it. She's naked, and it was the waitress actually of the diner. But she's naked, and I think that infects the old man or the pastor.
Yeah, he starts sweating.
Yeah, he starts sweating. He gets obsessed. He starts having dreams about having sex with her, and her like tearing him up as a wolf, but also him like fucking her or whatever at the same time. So, it's like this whole thing, and then the best is like I guess he's talking in his sleep, like, "Oh yeah, wolf girl, you're so bad" or whatever, and like the boy hears this outside the tent, and it's like, Reverend, like I imagine this kid is like Rod and Todd from like Flanders or something.
Yes.
Yeah, and so he's like, Reverend, I can't believe you're you know, you're lusting after that woman, and the Reverend hits him. And so then the revival continues, and afterwards they had like kind of a bad night one night, and because I guess like it depends what night's going on in town, right? So some nights the people go to this revival, some nights they go to like the gambling night, and sometimes there's other stuff going on that we don't know about yet. And so the pastor is like, well, I must see that child again, you know, and make sure she's okay. And he actually goes up over to her this time inside the pit, and he walks up to her, and she basically presents herself like an animal or whatever, and is like telling him have sex with me. So
yeah, he's like, give me strength. Oh, girl is tempting me.
Yeah, gird me from these temptations of the flesh. Like, but they don't. He does have sex with her, and while he's on top of her, the little boy's like, she bitch, and he comes out of nowhere. And he goes to stab the girl, but the pastor stops him, and the pastor ends up killing the boy on accident. But then, and it's all dark in this pit, right? And all of a sudden, lights click on, and we see that this was all actually the show that everybody was not there for the revival for, because it's like a gladiatorial pit where we just watched a boy and a man kill or try to kill each other, and the boy lost. And then we look and see there's a bunch of other people from the ministry. They're tied up and they're put on chairs. And then the owner of the freak show says, like, now it's time to let the circus loose. And then he opens the door from where all those animals were being kept earlier that were starving. And they were starving for a reason, because now it's time to eat. So yeah.
They obviously do this. This reminded me very much of like an old, I think it was a Tales from the Crypt, or maybe like Beyond Darkness. There's one where this guy runs like an insane asylum, and he like doesn't treat them very well, and he's got a dog, being great, I think German Shepherd or something, and they end up like locking him in a room, and they build this like corridor that he has to walk down, that traps him. It's got like razor blades and stuff over the wall, and they'd starve his dog, and so his dog ends up eating him.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's similar to that. This does have like a couple twists, so you weren't sure, if the girl was good or bad, but it seems like she was in on it. And then like, yeah, it's just there to tempt these people. I guess they just wait for someone to get tempted by the girl, right? And then and then unleash all the animals on them and
unleash
for gladiatorial games. Yeah. So that was the first issue. Now that was like, I read that and I was like, wow, this is like a strong start. So and I will say not every one of these is perfect. I'll say the first one of issue 2, I was like, what is going on? And this one is about an autistic daughter of a scientist who's like combating some kind of virus or bio warfare that's going on. The art is by Bill Sienkiewicz, which the art looks great, but I did not understand the story very well, or at least it was just kind of like, it's okay. It wasn't very scary. It's like there's some kind of virus that pets can get contaminated by, so all pets have to be inside, and then that means that this autistic girl can't leave the house because she might get bit by an animal, even though it's not transferable to humans yet. They're not sure if it is or not. They don't want it to mutate. So this autistic girl is like kind of just going around and not quite understanding what her dad does, which she's like looking at his microscope as like he's looking at biohazard, like viruses and shit. And the mom just lets her do it. Like the dad was like, I'm gonna go get something from my office, and leaves this, lab set up with the virus underneath the microscope. And the mom's like, oh, she loves the microscope, just let her look into it. So it was a weird one. I didn't like quite think it was a scary story at all, but it was weird. I'll say that. What'd you think of that one, John?
Yeah, it was okay. I like viral stories, but it wasn't necessarily like didn't seem really like scary.
Yeah, it was just weird. I didn't quite understand what was going on. Or like I understood what was going on, but I didn't understand why this was like in a horror anthology. It was just odd. I'll say that. It was just like maybe unsettling because it was so odd. But yeah. Then the second one to me was the standout of issue 2. This one is about like you have no idea who it is or like what exactly is going on. You're just following this woman. She's going to her work every day, taking the subway. It looks like it's in New York or somewhere like that. She's taking the subway. She walks the same path every day.
Or her friend takes the subway. She lives close.
Oh yeah, that's it. But she walks to work every day.
Yeah.
So and this one's called Found Object. And so I didn't know any of these creators. Bob Fingerman wrote it. Pat McCowan. Yeah, Pat McCowan wrote it. Or drew it, I mean. And so this woman going back and forth to work every day, she's got friends in the office. She seems normal. And then on the way home one day, she finds a picture on the ground, and it's of like a pretty boy looking dude in a suit. And she kind of talks to it and says like, oh, you're an arrogant looking bastard, but whatever, like you're coming home with me. Okay, that's weird. I don't know what that was about, but looks like she just found a picture. And this happens pretty much every day. She finds a picture on the ground, and every time the first picture was just the dude in a headshot in like a suit. The second picture is like an arm.
Like
disembodied,
a severed
a
arm.
severed
Yeah.
arm. Yeah, a severed arm. The third picture is like a severed other arm, and then so on and so forth until his body is basically rebuilt on her fridge. She hangs these images on her fridge. There's a torso at the very end, and we find out basically that she is a serial killer who's been like, who found this guy, killed him, and has been leaving these pictures on the sidewalk every day, hoping someone would find it, I guess.
Yeah, she was like trying to get, yeah.
Yeah. And no one did. So this guy was just left unfound.
Yeah, she would drop the picture in the morning, and then it's still there the afternoon when she walks home. She had pretended like, oh, let me just pick up this random photo I found.
Yeah. But like I wasn't exactly sure like what the point of that was, other than she just wanted to see if someone would find it, like, and that maybe that would create like excitement to her, like, ooh, someone found it. Maybe like the cops are gonna be after me or something, I don't know. But
Probably,
as of right now,
it was her coworker because he was arrogant. Yeah, like
oh, that's right. It was her coworker at the beginning. So
yeah, she said they were like, "Oh, that Jim, he's so arrogant. That's just the way men are sometimes."
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. So yeah, that one was fun. I thought because I didn't see where it was going until the very end. And I was like, oh, that's like really interesting. Like it came out of nowhere to me. So, and then the second one I thought was like crazy. This one was, or I'm sorry, the third one is crazy. Is by Brian Azzarello and Edward Riso, who did 100 Bullets, and they wrote a long run on Batman. I don't know, they're well. We know Edward Riso from, he did some stuff on the Frank Miller Master Race.
Master Race, okay.
Like the one of the fill-in issues.
Okay, I was like, I never remember the name.
Yeah, it was actually the fill-in issue that we didn't like the art on. I was like, wow, Riso's usually better than this, but whatever. But yeah, I like his art though. I think he's good. So but this one is cool because it's called Food Chain, and it's about two undercover cops, or not undercover. They're cops on a sting, and they're like in an apartment, or in like an apartment or a.
I thought it was like a motel room.
Yeah,
right?
a motel room. There you go. Next to a motel room where they're trying to like get recordings of someone buying drugs or killing someone. Someone's doing bad stuff, and so we find out that these guys are listening in, and they're partners. And it turns out that there's an undercover cop in the room trying to get that going, get the sting going. And it doesn't work out exactly because basically one of the cops is fucking that dude's wife, the undercover guy's wife, and they have a plan to like just let him die. They're like, let's let this escalate. Also, we need to have this guy doing something really bad so we can put him away from prison forever. So if he kills our undercover cop, who I want dead, yeah, I mean, we'll get him for murder. We have it on tape, right? No, that's a sure thing murder, right? Yeah. So basically, he convinces his partner that it's okay because we need to get this guy on these charges. And yeah, I'm fucking the other dude's wife. It's fine. Yes, I have an ulterior motive, but it's really for the job, And so that's his whole thing that he's trying to do. So that one was interesting. I thought it was fun. The buildup was interesting with him trying to convince his partner. But yeah, I will say that one was pretty strong too for a second issue.
It was weird and creepy.
It was weird and creepy for sure.
This one I was a little sad. The next one that comes up, because the covers don't necessarily depict anything that goes on in them.
Yeah, no.
But this next one, I actually was like, oh man, I hope whatever this story is in their comic, the cover is like an old woman who, I don't know if she's like a Pied Piper or if she just has people.
No, I think she just has a fur coat.
Oh, okay. No, that makes more sense. Yeah. And there's all these skinned animals, like of all different varieties, following her
and crying
and cold
crying
and
behind her. Yeah.
It is such a good cover.
Super fucked up. Yeah. So the first one in this issue 3, I thought was kind of basic. I don't know what you thought about this one.
It was basic, but I liked it. I like I like the way it ends. So
yeah, it's called Night Terrors. It's about a boy who's got a book on witches. Some neighborhood kids tell him that these witches will come out at midnight, and the reason why kids don't get eaten by them all the time is because they're asleep. So if you're awake at midnight, you will get killed by witches. Is basically the premise for this.
And he's from California, so he was like, "Oh, my parents said there's no such thing as witches."
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if they guess they just moved here or whatever. And so the kid can't he's freaking himself out so bad that night that he can't go to sleep. He's doing his damnedest to go to sleep, but he can't. And his parents are like, there's no such thing as witches. It's fine. Go to sleep. And there just happens to be like a grandfather clock in the room he's staying in. And he's waiting for it. And it's getting closer and closer to midnight. And he can't sleep. And he can't sleep. And he's freaking out. And then all of a sudden it dings midnight. And he's like, oh, there aren't any witches. My parents were right. And then he goes to get some milk at the fridge. And he looks at the microwave and he sees, oh my God, it's 11:59. That clock was fast. And so it actually is midnight now. And all of a sudden, it looks like his parents come out. Like
maybe I wasn't sure who that was. But
I know there's a woman, or it looks like a woman, but someone who knows him. They say Paul, and we don't know if it's his mom or it is. I don't know if the mom took him or if he just disappeared because the milk is on the ground spilled, and the person who was all in shadow and kind of looked evil because they have dots for their eyes were saying like Paul. So I don't know if they were saying like Paul evilly or Paul like a mother would of concern. So, but I thought that one was fun, but it was very basic. And then the next one I thought was like this one I thought was really good, but I got confused a little bit on it. I don't know what you thought about this one.
So, I did too. I didn't understand what was going on quite at first.
Yeah. So we have an old lady who needs care because she's had a stroke. She's in a wheelchair. And then there's a caretaker for her that is like the person that cooks and cleans for her. And then also like pushes her on walks and stuff. So we see right away that as she's chopping vegetables for dinner that night, she's got this big ass knife and she definitely is kind of evil. She's like, we're seeing, we're getting like a what's it called? A voiceover, or not like a narration of like the inner thoughts of this person. Is it the narration of the old lady or it's the narration of the old lady, we think. That's what it is.
Yeah, the old lady.
Yeah, so the old lady we're getting the narration from her, and she's saying like she's evil, she's trying to kill me, like, you know, she's gonna kill my son who's visiting and stuff. But she ends up taking the old lady for a walk and pushes her around. She buys rat poison. We see her take that rat poison and poison a dog. So this caretaker is like terrible, like a dog in the park too. Like I also thought this art was it looked to me like Edward Riso, but it's not. It's someone named Marcelo Frusion, who did a Hellblazer run, but it looks a lot like Edward Riso from the other issue. So I was like, wait, are they like the same person or what's going on here? But anyway, like at this park, she would purposefully hurt children by like kicking rocks into rollerblades and stuff and making them fall. She would poison squirrels and also kill a dog with a hot dog that she laced with rat poison.
Yeah, and she tucked the big butcher knife in her jacket when she walked outside too.
Yeah, so the old lady's like, oh my God, she's gonna kill me. And I know it, and she's up to no good. So this caretaker is at the park. She poisons that dog, and then the police are called for the dog. In the meantime, she's like walking with the old lady, and it begins to get like evening time, and she's about to stab the old lady eventually. And the cops, I guess, got the description of the person who fed the dog, which was this caretaker, and they pull out their gun and they're like, "Stop, lady! Drop the hot dog!" but it's actually a knife in her hands. They thought it was a hot dog, and then we find out, like, there's like a moment where both of the old lady and the caretaker's eyes light up, and I was like, wait, either the old lady is transferring into the caretaker or vice versa, or something's going on. And basically what it is the old lady's some kind of witch. In the past, I guess when she got this caretaker initially, she switched minds with her. So the caretaker that we saw was actually the old lady who is some sort of demented serial killer.
Yeah.
And the actual caretaker was inside the old lady's body, unable to move for how many years? I don't know how many years it said, but a long time.
A while, yeah.
And so when they switch, the caretaker is back in her original body and is like, oh, thank God. But now she's about to get shot by cops. She has a knife in her hand and a hot dog laced with arsenic or whatever. And but she's like, fuck this, I'm going out with a bang. And she decides to lunge at the old lady. It seems like the old lady can like telekinetically talk to her or something, because the old lady's like, haha, even though I'm trapped in my old body, I could just jump into a new one again. Like, you're stuck and now you're going to go to like death row for killing these people or dogs or whatever.
Yeah.
She hasn't killed anybody yet that they know of, but dogs at least, and you're going to get arrested. And so the caretaker in her now, after hearing that, decides to lunge at the old lady and says, it's better to take you with me, and kills the old lady in the wheelchair as she gets shot by cops. And yeah.
I know, and the police are like, man, that poor old lady.
Yeah. She must have really got under her skin. Yeah.
Wah,
So,
wah.
yes. And then we get to my favorite story of this whole thing. This was my favorite.
Good. Me too. I'm so glad.
So this was written by Garth Ennis, who I'm reading the Hellblazer run that he's doing right now, or that he did right now for our Matt's Minis podcast on Patreon. And he's one of my favorite writers. He did the Punisher Max series that we read.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he's done a lot of stuff, but he's generally like a very misanthropic writer, or like he definitely has like fuck the world mentality to his writing kind of thing. So this issue, or this this eight pages, is called Satanic, and we see a picture of Titanic. So he just took Satan and Titanic, put them together.
Genius.
Satanic. Yeah, it's the word satanic. There you go. So what this is, it's almost a silent comic, but what it is we see the Titanic taking off, and it says, like, Garth Ennis literally saying, this is a dream I dreamed not long after I saw Titanic. And so it's the Titanic taking off. We see all the rich people like they were in the ship. Then we see them turn to the camera and they're all evil looking. Then we see the poor people look up, like as if the old people are looking at them creepily. And then the old people burst into the lower decks. I'm sorry, the rich people burst into the lower decks of the poor people and begin to massacre them, like pull them out of there by their hair, shoot them, bring them up so that all these rich people on the top deck can murder them in some sort of blood orgy ritual, because they disembowel all these poor people, rub their guts all over them, take off all their clothes, have a big massive sex orgy while they're like eating the hearts of these people in a pentagram that they drew in blood.
With the blood, yeah.
And it's very graphic. So yeah, this is not a kid's comic at all. But we're seeing like all these people, and this goes on for days. Like the ritual continues. They just keep going to the lower decks and the lower decks and getting more and more people out and murdering them and raping them and all this stuff. So this goes on until the 14th of April, which is the night that supposedly the Titanic hit an iceberg. But what actually happens is finally the Titanic does sink, but only because a demon is summoned and it takes out the Titanic. And all these rich people, as they're going down, are saying, we deserved it, we deserve it, we deserve it. And then a demon saying, yes, you deserved it, you deserved it. As he kind of looks like Poseidon or something, like wood, except he's all red, but he's just like in the ocean, you know.
Yeah, and he's gigantic. He's like 10 times bigger than the Titanic.
Yes. And so the Titanic goes down, and then we see all the rich people who were the only ones who made it on the rafts, of course. And they're just looking at each other, and they're like, an iceberg? Yes, iceberg, that'll do. And then iceberg it is then. And then we see coming out of one of the last panel of this is the door that Jack and Rose were on in the movie. And there's a knife going through Jack's head. And then it says, still, look on the bright side. No Celine Dion. And that's the end of it. I fucking loved that. It made me laugh very hard. I was like, what the fuck is going on in this thing? Garth Ennis is a genius. That's all.
Yeah, that was one of my absolute favorites in the whole entire one.
Yes. And that was the last issue of 3. And then we move on to issue 4. This one had a couple weird ones, a couple that I got confused on. the first one I got confused on. You got confused on the third one, but
Yeah.
the first one is basically like a weird double cross of a double cross. It's like there's two men. They're out on a hunting trip in the wilderness in the wintertime. Turns out one of the men is getting stabbed right now on the first page, and that man had a gun. And the man who's stabbing him was his best friend. It turns out the best friend was cheating on that friend that is dying right now.
Dying, his wife.
With that guy's wife. So he's like, but he's like, that guy came out here to kill me. So like, it's like there was a double cross of a double cross going on because the friend brought him out to have a hunting accident. And then it ended up the friend got killed by the cheating friend. So, yeah, it was weird. And then like, I got confused because there's so many like twists of a twist going on. And the narration is hard to keep straight because he's talking about what the other guy thought, like what he thought he was doing. And then he's like, but I knew, but that guy knew, like, so it was kind of a lot of, I knew that he knew that I knew that this was going on kind of thing. But I liked the art a lot. It was by Kent Williams, I think is his name. That was interesting. Yeah, Kent Williams. So he's got like an interesting kind of style. But this one I thought was interesting. It didn't have like a big, like at the end, even though it tried, it said, it says, like basically the guy buries his friend who was trying to kill him in the first place and is like, oh, I'm going to go like, now this works out for me. You die and I can go be with your wife and you tried to kill me. So I don't feel bad about it. And then as he's walking, he falls in a pit and finds out that that dude actually planned on this kind of, and just, he killed his wife first and buried her in a pit. And then he was going to bury his friend in there too, but his friend killed him. And then his friend fell in that pit while walking out to go see the wife. So
he died anyway.
Yeah. So he dies in the pit with the wife that is dead in there too. So it was a lot of like, twist on top of twist on top of twists. Then probably my favorite of this issue.
Oh, by far.
Yeah, by far. Is this one by story and art or by Ty Templeton, who is the artist on a lot of the Batman animated comics. So he definitely has that feel in his art. And it's about a guy who's going to sell his soul to the devil. The story's called Fair Trade. And so this guy, does a spell where he like gets goat's blood, gets some holy water, summons the demon. The demon's like, what can I get you? And the guy's like, I want you to make Agatha on the 8th floor of my job love me. And that's it. And the guy's like, okay.
I just want to be, I want her to love me.
Yeah, that's it. I can do that. And so the demon's like, got it. Here's the contract. Just sign here. And as the dude's about to sign, we got another demon come and be like, wait. How about I give you that and some money? And then like, basically this story is just one-upping of demons because hell has gotten competitive. And there's some new like laws in place.
The powers that be. Oh, yeah. Okay. I guess someone up there noticed there was a monopoly on soul harvesting.
Yeah. So they broke up the monopoly. So now everybody has to compete for business, and they can't just give these people willing to sell their souls some like shitty soul contracts. So there's all these demons, and they all are like, I'll give you money and free cable and a cell phone, like like all this stuff, a new cell plan, and all this, like just crazy. I'll give you HBO and like free Lifetime Playboy channel and all that stuff. Like it's just like crazy stuff like that. So I thought that was funny. It's like a pretty simple story, but I just thought that was funny that the guy ends up like being surrounded by demons, and then at the end he's like, now who said that they had free cable? Like he's still gonna go through it, but he got the better deal. He knows how to bargain. He's bargaining well for his soul. So
I did like the main devil, the first one that showed up was like, hey man, I thought you said you only wanted love. You don't need any of this other crap.
Yeah. But when you're gonna get money and all this other stuff,
yeah.
Well, right. And then the third story I liked a lot, actually. The art is fucking awesome by Paul Gulacy. It's written by Bruce Jones. It's called Playing Dead. You said you were confused a little bit by it.
I understand it now. Yeah, I was a little.
We talked about
first.
it. Yeah. So this one takes place in the Old West. There's an attack of Native Americans on some colonial soldiers, I guess, or I guess it's in the 1800s, so I don't know if they're colonials, but North American soldiers from America. And they're being scalped, and one of the guys plays dead and gets out of it. So he's on the run from these Native Americans who he's worried are still kind of going to track him. And he runs into a cabin as he's like, well, I can't go south because the Native Americans are there. I can't go back to my base because they'll say I abandoned my post. So I will just go north into the unknown. So he goes and he finds a cabin in the middle of nowhere. And he walks in and there's already like a table set. There's food ready to go. And as he eats, he falls asleep. And then he's woken up by a beautiful woman who's like, oh, honey, like you finally are done gallivanting around. I couldn't believe it, that you're here. Now you wouldn't leave your old Nadine, would you, Harv? And it just turns out that his name is also Harvey from, I guess, this lady's husband who was named Harvey as well. And she is just kind of like delirious, we think, where she is just like, you're my husband, Harvey. And he's like,
I am your husband, Harvey.
Yeah. Basically, he just kind of plays along for a while.
Yeah, especially when like she's like, come to bed, and like takes out her and shows him her boobs, and he's like, I am Harvey.
Yeah, yes, I am Harvey. And so he's like, well, what are you gonna do, right? This lady wants to sleep with me. Yeah, exactly. When in Rome, no harm done. I could learn to live this, learn to like it, And she's even like, oh, you shaved your beard or whatever. And she sees a picture of, or he sees a picture of her husband, and it does look a lot like him. So he's like, oh, that must be what happened. He died or something. And she thinks I'm him because she just wants to. So I'll play along. I needed to escape anyway. So he plays along for a while. And then while he's out, like fixing a fence one day, he sees the Native Americans ride up, and he's like, oh my God, they're going to kill us. But they look at him like they're scared, kind of like, what the fuck? And then they run away. So he's like, oh, they must think that they saw a ghost. Lucky me, And then he continues to sleep with the lady, eat food. And then one night he gets up, he can't sleep, and he finds like a board that's creaky. And he picks it, or he like lifts it up, and he finds a diary. And it's the diary of Harv, the original Harv. We don't know how long this diary has been there, which Harv it is. Because they make it very clear that this guy lived with his wife, or this lady, and he's like, I can't believe my good fortune. Wandering for months, then I came upon this valley, and it's beautiful, and this place is awesome, and there's this lady, and she's awesome, and but the more he reads this diary, it seems a bit concerning. Like, for example, he just says like, she gets a little clingy and she's kind of crazy, and she starts walking around with like a knife and shit in the nude after they have sex, and it's just like weird shit starts happening. And then eventually the guy runs into the Native Americans again outside, and he's like, but they look at me like I don't know, like I'm dead or I'm a spirit or something. And then they run off again, and he's like, it's so weird, I don't understand it. So then we get like the breakdown of the actual story that happened. And basically this guy that left the diary, lived with her for a while, and she was just like, I'll say, what's that movie with Glenn Close where she goes crazy for Michael Douglas?
Fatal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction. It's like that. It's like Fatal Attraction, where she like starts off nice and goes fucking insane. And like, it's just all about fucking him and keeping him in the dark about like her craziness, I guess. But she sleeps with this butcher knife. So the last night that they're there, the guy like read the last line of the diary, and it says like, and now I'm just playing dead because I can't leave. And I know she's crazy, but if I leave, she'll probably kill me or something, or track me down, and I might die from those Indians. So what am I going to do? And so he's sitting there in the dark, like thinking to himself, like, I'm trapped. I got to play dead too, I guess. And he's saying he'll wait, and then all of a sudden you just see his mouth open, like it's a thin panel of his mouth screaming and blood coming out, because apparently she just murders him.
Yeah.
So so that's the end. That was I liked that story a lot. I thought the art was really good, and yeah, it had a good sense of dread and everything. So and then the next issue starts, and this one, like I will say, like a lot of these stories get less good as we go, or not less good, but there's always at least one in the bunch that I liked a lot.
Yeah, I like this first one of the bunch.
Yes, and so pretty much this one was the only one I liked about it. about this issue, and it's written by Joe Lansdale, which I like a lot, with art by Rick Burchett. And this one starts off with a guy in like a suit going into a cemetery. It turns out he is a necrophiliac who is finding out, or he's going to the grave of a woman who was just buried because she was murdered, and he's like, "Oh my god, I can't wait! It's our wedding night. I always love wedding nights." And he's gonna marry her in quotation marks, and then he can't wait to consummate the marriage and all this stuff. He's getting super creepy. He digs her up and takes her out, and as he's dragging her out of the cemetery, he gets hit by a car because he drags her across a road because he's parked far away, because he doesn't want to look like he's stealing a grave or whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be creepy, you want to seem odd. And so so he gets hit by someone. It turns out when the guy gets out of his car, he sees the lady on the road and he's like, "Well, look who it is.
Damned.
Yeah, I'll be damned. I can't believe it. I killed you last night or like a while ago or whatever." And then he says like, "Oh, she lasted hours, my last victim." And then he looks at the dude and he's like, "Oh, this sick bastard was stealing bodies. Like, man, I mean, I murder and torture him, but messing with a corpse, that's the kind of sick thing you go to jail for or whatever."
It just drives off.
It just drives off. Yeah. So I thought that one was funny because I wasn't sure where it was going to go. And then it ends up like, oh yeah, the serial killer kills the necrophiliac. So that was funny. And then the next one I thought was weird and didn't make any sense, but it's about a peeping Tom in an apartment house. I guess this is like the maintenance guy or something. He's got a gigantic hole in the wall looking into a bedroom where this couple is always fucking. It's a gigantic hole. I mean, he could fit his head through it.
Yeah, like I would be surprised that anyone would not be like, "What is that hole? We need to fix that hole."
Yes, and also like I can hear you across, like I can hear you through the hole. Like it's very weird. It's very creepy and weird, and like doesn't make any sense really. But anyway, this guy, is into watching this couple next door have sex. He thinks
he has a doll, a full size doll of the woman from next door.
Yes. Do we know that right away? Oh yeah, we do right away. We see that. So he's super into the girl next door. Then he hears them having sex one night, and he goes on top of his ladder to look through the hole, which is kind of high up on a wall, and he sees them doing asphyxiation sex or whatever. So each of them have like a plastic bag over their head, and it looks like it goes a little too far, where the girl looks like she's killed by the man, and then the guy's like, "Oh my god, he killed her, but I can't call the cops because they'll know that I was peeping." And it's like, what? Like, why? That's not like, I mean, I guess that might be illegal or something, but I don't think they'll really care if you
call the cops.
Yeah. So he holds off on that. And eventually he goes down into the basement to go like do his maintaining stuff one day. And he sees the woman there, and she's like, "Oh my God, help me. You have to help me. He's going to kill me." So it seems like, okay, she just passed out from the asphyxiation, and he's got her like tied up in the basement. So he brings her to his room, and then while she's there, he's like, "Oh, you should get him on camera, and he'll kill the next lady, and then that way, we'll have him on camera killing someone." So he gets him on camera as he brings home the next person, but the next person looks a lot like the girl that's in his apartment right now. That's in the Peeping Tom's apartment.
Yep.
So it's like, wait, what? Does she have a twin sister or something? But it turns out, no, the guy's crazy. He just had the doll, I guess.
Yeah, I guess he was talking to the doll and like thinking that the doll was her.
And that's it. So I was like, okay, that's weird. And then the next one was like super weird. It was basically a CEO against an eco group, like a CEO of like a pollution company kind of thing. Like he I don't know what they do. They make plastics and shit. So they're polluting the environment.
A very blonde Conan O'Brien-esque person.
Yes. That the CEO looks like Conan O'Brien. There's an eco guy who's like protesting. And then as the eco guy gets yelled off the lots by Conan O'Brien looking CEO, CEO goes home and starts getting weird like tastes in his mouth. So basically like everything that's made of not organic stuff, I guess, starts giving him weird tastes. So the cereal tastes weird, soap smells weird, everything smells weird that's not organic, until eventually he can't stand it, and he begins to like pull off he's got to like put a mask on. He goes to the doctor, gets an oxygen tank, And they're like, we don't know what's going on with you, but just use this oxygen tank because at least that's clean oxygen. But he could smell the mask because it's plastic. He could smell the rest of the world still a little bit. He starts going crazy. Everything just gets worse and worse until eventually he like kind of pulls a fly and just starts pulling off pieces of himself.
Ugh, yeah.
And then he ends up going back to the office and everybody doesn't recognize him because he's, pulled off pieces of himself and they think he's crazy. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
He's pretty much mutilated himself to the point of like being unrecognizable.
Yeah. And the other boss there is like, oh my God, how do you go from like CEO to a fruitcake? Maybe it's something in the air. And it's because like and then we see like their stuff is polluting everything, right? So
yeah, it's called fumes.
Yeah. And so the next issue didn't really have anything I liked in it. I don't know about you. I'd say the best one I thought was the last one, which is the alien wife one.
That one, I like that one a little bit too. Actually, I like the middle one as well.
You like the middle one? Okay, the middle one I was like, all right, this one's weird, but yeah. So the first one is called Dead Woman Walking. It's like literally starts off with a corpse talking to a therapist. We find out this lady found out that her husband was cheating on her with a girl. They conspired to kill her. They poisoned her. She died. She resurrected. She tried to spook them at first, but then in some weird way, she ended up like fucking the guy and they ended up being like okay with each other. And then like they agreed like, you know what, you should just die because there's no purpose for you. Like you should just go back in the ground. And so when she does that, she like feels like, no, I shouldn't. Why should I die? And then when she does that, like the powers that she's kind of like putting out there bring up all these dead people in the cemetery. Basically, she just creates like Night of the Living Dead, where they all go around and murder everybody that's alive, right? That's what it seemed like to me. Or at least they just rise and then they're all getting therapy by this therapist now.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, see," and then she's like, "All right, I'll see you next week, right? Same time." And she's like, "Would miss it."
Yeah, and then you see in the waiting room, there's like a bunch of corpses waiting to be seen. So yeah, that was that one, and then the next one's called El Orgoro, so the ogre, I'm assuming. This one is about a boy whose brother died, and he's so sad that his brother died, he stops moving, stops doing everything except eating. So he's like, since he was a boy, now he's like a middle-aged person maybe, or a teenager.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe like
early 20s,
like early 20, maybe 20s to early 30s.
Okay, so he's all he's been doing since his brother died when he was a kid is sitting in bed and eating. His parents kind of enable this behavior, and they also don't know what to do. The dad's kind of frustrated. He's like, I don't know what to do. So eventually, the dad has some dreams where he's like, oh my God, like he dreams of the son eating the mom. That's how like insatiable the son is.
Yeah, and to put it in perspective, like even some of those shows like that are out there, like some of those people are bigger. They have a probably eating disorder or something. This guy has to be like well over 1,000 pounds. Like this is unbelievable is in weight size that.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like the guy that's in like My 600-Pound Life or one of those people, like yeah. So, and the parents are kind of like, all right, we got to stop this, and basically we see that in the kid's dreams, he's crying because he sees his brother.
He misses his brother.
Yeah, and so the parents are like, well, we'll just end his suffering because we can't give him anything else. So they decide to kill him, and before they can, they're not responding to him fast enough one day, and they're about to like go do the deed where they're like picking up a knife and they're gonna go like poison him with some food, and he gets up and he runs out to them and he trips because he's not used to walking and he falls on them
and crushes them to death.
Yeah, he dies and they die because I guess he like.
Well, no, he doesn't die. He falls into a coma.
Right, but I mean, like he that okay, but they say like he might die away. So
yeah. But I love that it took them like weeks to find, like they said it was all like dried blood and like,
yeah,
they were
like,
I
think he's going to die because like he's in a coma because he's probably dehydrated super a lot and everything because he couldn't do anything. And so then we see like, well, now in his dreams, he's got his brother and his parents. The end. Like
that made me think, I wondered if like maybe he accidentally killed his brother.
Yes. I thought that too. Like what was the cause of, they don't really go into it, but yeah. And then the one I liked that's kind of weird is called The Day Wife. It's about a husband who wakes up one night. I should say it's by Phil Hester, did the story and the pencils on it. And so this guy wakes up one night to his wife in the bed. He's like, oh, she's hot, like starts to like feel her body a little bit, see if she'd be down for some hanky panky or whatever. And he notices on the back of her neck there's some kind of like zipper basically. And he's like, it looks so weird. And he kind of opens it a little bit, sees some blue light, and he's like, what the fuck? And he closes it back up the first night. Then the second night, he looks again, and this time he opens it all the way, and it turns out she's an alien, like an alien body. And when she's in this alien body, she wakes up, of course, when he does this, and she is like a completely different woman. She's all over him. Not that his first wife wasn't, but like it seemed like they just kind of maybe they'd mellowed out and their love had kind of gotten monotonous or something.
They've been married for a while.
Yeah. And so this alien version of his wife, she's DTF. She is crazy, blowing his mind, doing all the moves, whatever. So he gets obsessed with her, and he starts feeling like he's cheating, so much so that he's like, I need to get the blue wife in here more often, kind of thing. So he begins to like try to make the wife want to become the blue. Like he tries to make her do the same things that the blue woman did, and she, as like her human self, is not into it.
Yeah,
I mean they're having sex or whatever, but like she's not doing what he's thinking or he wants her to do like the blue woman did. And then he takes her skin off one night and he like throws it away. I think he burns it even or something, so like she won't have it anymore. And then that seems to work, but then she begins to get kind of monotonous, like the blue wife. He lives with her for a while, and he feels like, oh, maybe it kind of feels like he killed his first wife. And so yeah, it's like a weird thing he feels. And then as he's shaving one day, he looks in the mirror and he sees a zipper on his face. And he realizes, oh shit, I'm one of them too. We're both these things. So but yeah, this seemed like a metaphor for like cheating or something. Like you get a new partner who's exciting or whatever, and eventually they just become monotonous and mundane too. So and then you find out that you're not the person you thought you were or something.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
So let that be a lesson to all you listeners out there.
Yeah, no cheating. All right, so we're at the home stretch here. We got issue 7. This one I thought had kind of weak stories. I don't know what you thought. The last story in this was the one that did it for me for the most part. What'd you think about 7?
Yes, that's how I felt too. I think the last one, it takes a village, is the last one that in this grouping of 3.
Yeah, and so issue 7 starts off with this conservative dad who is a closeted homosexual. So he I guess in the 80s and 90s was gay or was out as gay, but then he decided to become a conservative. I don't know exactly why, but they don't really go into it. But then he shunned all of his gay friends. So and it turns out that his son is either a cross-dresser or trans. And so his son is at this party. He follows his son to the party, and all of his old gay friends are there. And so it's just like the dad walking through this party and seeing all of his friends. And I thought maybe this was like something like the dad died. Like they don't say this at all. This is me like guessing, right? Because it's like all of his old friends who he mentions sometimes, like, oh, I thought they were sick. It's like, oh no, they're okay. We're okay. So I'm assuming that's like AIDS they're talking about. So I'm thinking what this party is people are dead. These are actually like ghosts or heaven or whatever, or limbo. And this dad just died. He pulls in on a train to this platform where there's a party going on with all his gay friends that he used to know. And they're all there from like 30 years ago and forward. So that's why I'm like, it must be that he's dead, because, all of these people from his past just happen to be at this one party.
I didn't pick that, and then it kind of makes sense too, because it also is like all black and white until except for him, but until he enters the party,
right? And then the party's all colorful.
Yeah,
and then also his son is there. I'm assuming maybe his son killed themselves in response to their dad. Maybe, I don't know. But that's what I got from it. Like thinking about it, because at first I didn't give that either, and then I was like, well, maybe it's something like that, because eventually he walks through the whole party and they begin tearing his clothes off as they kind of expose him for being a horrible person. And then he's left as like a mummy and we see that he's like all decrepit and old, and they rip out his heart and stuff. So like, yeah, it's all this stuff, and then he ends up talking to his son, um, who basically it's kind of like him saying that, like, you need this, dad. Here's your heart. It's from the embalming, so that's why I thought, okay, he's dead because he's embalmed, right? So it's either that or it's a metaphor for like his heart being hardened or dead over time. It could be that too. So
Mummified, keep it closing himself up to
yes,
his life.
Exactly. So and then the second one in this was the weirdest one of the whole trade. I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. There's just random scenes of randomness of like a dude on a beach, and then a tidal wave comes, and the tidal wave has a bunch of other stuff in it, and then it turns into a castle, and then the guy on the beach turns into a dinosaur, and then bugs fly out. It's like all this weird shit going on, and all these people that he's running into, this guy, and then all of a sudden at the very end we see, oh, it's just a dude with a VR headset in the future. So like he's going through some weird trippy VR thing, and people are watching his trip.
They're like, oh man,
bro. Yeah, one guy's like, tits, man, like like nice tits, because he's seeing like women's boobs on the TV or whatever through this dude's dreams. But yeah, I thought that was super weird. I did not. I'll say I didn't. This was the one I liked the least out of all of it. It's not that I didn't like it, but it was definitely like, what is going on?
Yeah, it was very weird.
And then the last one is the one I was talking about by Bill Willingham, who wrote Fables. He did the story and the art on this, and it's called "It Takes a Village." And we see this old man going to a place called Monsters for All Occasions, Costumes and More. And it turns out that this place rents out actual monsters for parties and whatever you might want. And this old man is going there to rent a monster to haunt the town or to haunt a specific town. And so we don't know why he wants to haunt this town, but apparently he's done it before. It seems he does it every couple of years or so, which I thought was funny at the end of this. And then and she's like, oh, would you like vampires again? He's like, oh, no, not vampires, not werewolves. The townspeople are used to that now. We need something new, some different stuff. And basically, we find out as the lady asks him, like, why do you want to haunt this village so bad? And it turns out that he is the mayor for the village. And he wants to keep, this village old school, like not only that, he wants to keep getting elected. So he tells the people like, I'm your leader against these horrible things that keep attacking us. But also like he says like, oh, all these kids, in these cities, they're too like disconnected from community and like they'll run away and sleep around, and we want to have like a nuclear family. So it's kind of like a super conservative guy hiring monsters to attack a town so that they all stay together.
He wants to keep beloved traditions alive.
Yes, exactly. So I wasn't sure what the message of this was, other than it was kind of like ironic that he was the mayor and that it happens every two years or so, which I would be super suspicious if I lived in that town. I was like, every time there's an election, werewolves come out, like monsters come out. So yeah, and that was the one that I liked the most of that one. I thought it was fun, and it was kind of like Fables because it was talking about like other creatures, otherworldly creatures. And then the last one, the last issue 8, had a couple. I liked the last story the best, I think, because it was just like weird and interesting.
Weird and like historical too.
Yeah, and historical. I like that. And it was kind of horrific in just the fact that it was true and historical.
Yeah.
So, but this one starts off, the first issue starts off with some like FBI agent coming to a town where there's been a murder. And she's interviewing some hillbillies and stuff. And I don't know, it's really weird. I didn't quite like it. It kind of felt similar to some of the other stories earlier, but not as well done. I didn't quite get like what the point is, but basically it ends up that like the hillbillies of this town kill people and then eat them at the diner that the FBI agents were like fed to.
Yeah, they were eating at.
Yeah, so the FBI agents realized that they've been eating their own former FBI agents who went to the city or the town to investigate this murder.
Yeah, I did like when they find the like prep room and they're like human steaks and sausage links, and yeah, it was disgusting but funny, like that weird gross way, like ugh.
Yeah, John thinks cannibalism is hilarious.
Hilarious.
Anyway, and then we get one that I thought was super weird. I mean, I kind of guessed it like immediately, but I was just kind of waiting for it to prove itself or to prove my theory to be true, which it did at the end. But we start off with this guy who it's called "You've Got Hate Mail," by the way. We start with this guy who's divorced from his wife, and one of the reasons why I got divorced is because he would be on like chat rooms when this was a thing in the 90s, I'm assuming, and he was like kind of having chat sex, I guess, with women on these chat rooms, and one in particular, after he's divorced, starts hitting up with him on here, and but then she just starts wanting to, instead of doing sexting or whatever, she just wants to start knowing more about him, and he's like, boring, next lady. But this lady ain't giving up. She Glenn Closes him as well and begins to start stalking him and sending him hate mail on emails and like writing shit on his car, so like she knows where he lives, and stalking him and charging stuff to his credit cards. And he doesn't know how this is happening. Like, how does she get his credit cards? He doesn't know all this stuff. And the whole time we're seeing like him like having visitations with his daughter and his wife, his ex-wife, dropping her off and stuff. So basically I figured out like way early that, oh yeah, it's his daughter. His daughter is this girl who's pretending to be this woman harassing him, but she's the one doing it. And that's what happens. But unfortunately he thinks it's some other lady, right? He thinks it's his neighbor, and he ends up like choking her and killing her. And then we find out that no, it was his daughter the whole time.
I thought it was going to be the wife getting back at the husband at first, honestly.
Well, once it said the credit cards, I was like, oh, for sure it's her, because they keep intercutting the daughter coming over to visit, and like who would get his credit cards?
Get the credit,
yeah. So and then the last story in this was the one that I thought was the most messed up and definitely creepy and weird. I also love the art by John J. Muth. I'm a big fan of his.
Sincerely, yeah, the art in this one was very cool because it had two distinct art styles within the one.
It has like traditional, like I guess like Asian painting style, and then it has the style of present day during the story. So what's going on is a mother telling her daughter like the story of how she got her feet bound and how wonderful it was, and how like it's, you know, from the gods, and these aunt goddesses came to her house when she was a kid, and we're seeing what actually happened and what the story is of the gods coming to the town and doing this to her. So when the gods do it, they're like, they just like caressed my feet and they became super dainty. And then we see what actually happened was you know, some lady came that was all like crazy looking and like broke her feet and bound them in silk so that they would be tiny and small and deformed, basically. So, and fit into these little baby shoes.
Yes, the lotus shoes.
Yes. And so, yeah, basically it's that. It's super creepy. We see the reality of what the mom went through. And then the story that the mom is telling her daughter about like how wonderful it is. So it's like, wow, the mother is now doing the same thing that her mother did to her, where they're just passing this horrible tradition down. And then the creepiest thing ever in this fucking thing was she's like, oh yeah, and then when you're married and you're older, like your wedding night, your husband will like see your feet for the first time and he will caress them, and it shows the husband like licking the foot, the broken, like just deformed foot. And it is super creepy.
So creepy.
And you see how like creeped out the woman is, which is the mom. This is the mom's story, that she's like what she actually went through.
Yep. Your father and I were truly in love.
Yeah, and it's super creepy. And that's it. And then it's like, oh, the daughter's about to get her feet bound. Isn't that wonderful? Done. And then it says like a little history of like the Empress of China formally outlawed the foot binding practice in 1902, but it remained fashionable until the 1920s. So yeah,
crazy.
So that was the end of the trade. So John, what would you give it, and what did you think?
I liked it a lot. I would say I definitely liked well over half of the stories. This was a very solid anthology collection of stories. All the art, I think, in it was good. I don't think there was any art that really took me out of it. No. There was a couple stories, like I said, I might have got a little confused on, but art wise, everything was really nice, and several of them, you know, again, because we've seen the artists, so we've enjoyed them. It was nice to have them in this horror aspect.
Yeah.
And again, some of the story, like I liked well over half, and some of the stories I loved. I would totally go back and like pick this up and like reread those because
Yes.
it was really good.
Yeah, I was like, I need to find these issues. I haven't seen these anywhere ever, so I'm like, I need to find these because there's 2 trades of it, so I think there's only 16 issues um, total. So it wouldn't
Nice.
be that hard to collect a ball.
And that's crazy that this is in the 90s. Like this is solid stuff.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah, like I just
and
it's yeah,
also pretty progressive. A lot of the stuff in here. I mean, it's Vertigo, so they're always kind of on the cutting edge of that stuff. Like this felt like it could come out today, and there wouldn't be anything wrong or bad or anything. You know,
no, yeah.
I thought it would like a lot of the story, like especially like the this story with the Chinese foot binding, the dad who was a secret closeted gay person. A lot of that stuff was like okay, like I could see those being in an anthology nowadays, kind of thing. So
Yeah, I don't think anything in this was taboo. So
yeah,
yeah, so I would say overall I would probably give this I'm gonna give this a 7. Like this was really good. I enjoyed it overall. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
yeah. I'm gonna give this an asterisk one because I think if you like anthologies, you will like it. It is a 7. If you don't like anthologies, you might like some of the stories, but you might also get like fed up with some, you know, like bored with some of the ones, you know, and not want to continue. So I'll give it a 6 for those people, but it's a 7 for people like me who like horror anthologies and things. So so yeah. And yeah, so I liked it a lot though, and I thought it was really good, and I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for these issues now in the future when I go like back issue hunting and stuff. So with that, John, what are we reading next week?
The next week is we have our Patreon poll is finished, and we have a winner. We are reading The Plot, which again, this is one you haven't read either, right?
Nope, I didn't read any of these. So
Yeah, so all of the ones in our poll, if you want to have a specific say in what we read at least once a month, we have our Patreon poll. You can sign up patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And every month we always put out, you know, everything that we put up on like YouTube, and we, you know, have the little, you know, kind of go over what we've done, and we always have a poll going up, so you have that direct input when we're reading. And this month we did all these newer horror comics from the last couple of years, and we had a bunch to choose from. And
yeah.
so the winner is The Plot. I don't remember who wrote this one. Do you?
I don't know who wrote it, but it is a Vault comic, I believe, which I haven't
Okay.
read. I've read some of them, but not too much of Vault comics. So I'm excited because I actually wanted this one to win, or at least it was one of the ones I wanted to win or wanted to read myself. So
Nice.
I'm excited about that. And we should also do a shout out to our patrons, Hoku and Otaku Mike. Thank you very much for being patrons. And if you would like to support us on Patreon, once again, that is patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And you can, like we said, vote on future episodes that we do at least once a month. You get to vote on what we do. And then also, I have a Hellblazer podcast going on, much like my Swamp Thing, Matt's Minis, where I'm reading every issue of Hellblazer. So if you need more Hellblazer in your life, definitely go check that out. Sign up for that. And yeah, other than that, I think we're good to go, John. Anything else you need to talk about?
No, I think we'll see you on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.